Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my Walking Dead Season 9, Episode 2 review. And if you watched the last video, I'm going to be structuring my review about the same way, where I'm going to do the introduction. The only thing I'm not going to do is the preview because I did that in the last episode, and there's really no need to do it in this episode. But then I'm going to watch the episode itself, review it, and then watch Talking Dead, and if there's anything worth mentioning, I'll review that. Um, so that's pretty much how this will be reviewed. So yeah, there's that. This episode is called The Bridge. Um, so this episode will be focused around that bridge they're gonna fix. But I think there's gonna be more symbolic things in there, but we'll get into that. And this episode came out on October 14th, 2018, and that's pretty much um, everything I know about that episode. Now that I've done the introduction, let's review the episode itself. Okay, so now on to the actual episode itself. Now, obviously, if you've ever watched any one of my Walking Dead videos, since this episode had two storylines going on, I'm going to talk about one first and then the other. I'm not going to do that right away just because one storyline kind of leads into another. So um, I'm just gonna talk about the show scene by scene, and then when that starts to happen, I'll talk about the story. I'll talk about it, the two storylines separately. The episode starts off with obviously um, that moment of the show that everybody was waiting for, with Wick sitting down and talking to Negan. The information that we found out, we didn't actually see it happen fully though. It just shows the beginning of it. But we knew it was Negan because if you watch the trailer of this season, we knew this conversation was coming, and obviously I was very excited about it. Um, because this was the first time we were going to see Negan in this season, the first time after months, um, you know, um, of Negan being trapped in that jail cell. Um, and Rick, we find out that it's been 35 days since the last episode, which I kind of like that there was a time jump. I thought that kind of made sense because with the amount of work that they get done on this bridge, there's no way um, they would have been able to do it from the last episode um, and to this episode in like a day. So I thought it made sense that like 35 days went by, and they Rick cuts that speech that we see him cut in the trailer, where he talks about um, how a while ago they were just fighting to survive. They were fighting to try to stay alive, but now people are trying to thrive in this world, and they're trying to make some type of future in this world. And there's been bumps and bruises on the road, but everybody's starting to work together. And we see that they're they're pretty much have camped out by this bridge, so that way they can go build it. And each of them has like their own separate communities that they go to. Rick is kind of in the headquarters. He's kind of the one that's mandating this project. I don't know if that's the right word, but he's pretty much the one that oversees everything that goes on. There's a section for Alexandria, Oceanside, um, the Hilltop, the Kingdom, and I think that's all the communities. And Eugene um, is pretty much hasn't been informing him about the day-to-day operations of what goes into making the dam, and he does reveal that some saviors um, have been disappearing, and that's the one I forgot is the sanctuary community. And Rick's, we also find out that they're running out of food, and Rick says that Mason's going to take care of that, and that a herd of walkers is just coming through. Um, so Rick says that they have a plan. They're going to have people set off sirens and stuff like that to lure the walkers away while the workers are working on the bridge. And Mason's going to bring food to the community because that was obviously the exchange they had talked about in the last episode with Maggie. Um, and that's where it kind of spills into two storylines. I'm going to kind of talk about the stuff that happened at the Hilltop first because it was kind of um, the B storyline of this show. What happens is Michonne goes to the community and she finds out what happens to the saviors and says that they don't know what happened to them. They don't know if they just abruptly left or they were taken out by walkers. But Michonne says that their community needs food and um, wants Maggie to give her some food. But Maggie pretty much says no because they don't have a blacksmith because Earl was the blacksmith, but they're keeping Earl locked up and um, the plow's broken and he can't fix the plow. So Michonne is very and Maggie aren't really seeing eye to eye about this. She wants to know why she's locking up Earl, um, because she doesn't agree with what he did to her, but she doesn't think it's right for Maggie just to lock him up. And Maggie says, um, because he wants to make sure that he's not going to do it again. And Michonne's kind of like, well, then why didn't you just hang him? So I did kind of like that confrontation they have with each other. Maggie lets Michonne spend the night, and Tammy is confronting Jesus, and Tammy wants to see her husband. She hasn't seen her husband in like over a month, but um, Jesus says that it's up to Maggie to let her do so. And Tammy's obviously very heartbroken because pretty much she doesn't have anybody. She lost her son in the last episode, and um, pretty much her husband's locked up in the room, so she's just gonna stay there until she can see her husband. Sean wonders if Jesus really is gonna talk to Maggie about this, and she brings up the fact that um, that she wants rules to be made so that way this stuff doesn't happen, and says that we need to make a community that's greater than us so that way other people can thrive in this community. So Jesus does talk to Maggie about it, and this makes Maggie agree to let Tammy see her husband. And Tammy and Earl reconcile. Earl apologizes to Tammy for kind of going back to his old roots and letting the alcohol take over him. And Tammy does says that God is going to find a way to forgive you, which it's really weird to hear about God in this show, because obviously God, a lot of people have that theory that God, you know, brought up the zombie apocalypse as a sign to everybody. So I thought that was interesting. But so then they leave, and Maggie and Earl have a conversation. And I did like this scene because we got to find out some backstory behind Earl. Obviously, we knew that he used to be an alcoholic. They talked about that in the last episode. I just didn't touch on it because I didn't really think it was going to end up being that important. And Earl talks about his past, how he drank alcohol because he quit smoking, and that was probably like a substitute. He says that when his son was born, he was drunk and he doesn't even remember it. And when they were fighting to make ends meet, his son would have a babysitter, and when he tried to pick him up from his babysitter, nobody would let him take him, but he pulled him in the car anyways, and they ended up going off the road. And Tammy came and saved them because I guess he accidentally called her a puppy pocket dial her, and he thought at that moment that Tammy was going to leave him, but then they agreed um, never to leave each other no matter how bad things got. And he joined AA afterwards and stopped drinking, um, and hadn't had a drink of alcohol since. And then pretty much everything in the last episode happened. Um, and he does say that Gregory wasn't the one that made him do that. It was the alcohol and his demons that took over. So yeah. So Maggie thanks him for telling um, her this story, and she goes to leave. But Earl wants to know why it wasn't him that was hung, it was Gregory. And Maggie says, "Do you think I made the wrong decision?" And Earl says no, because I don't think he wants to say yes, because then she probably will hang him. And then she leaves. And then Michonne and Maggie have a conversation, and Maggie says pretty much um, that she changes her mind. She instead decides to give her the food because um, now Earl is being allowed to be out of the cell, and he's going to work at blacksmith at Watch. And she does decide to have a charter for both communities because it thinks it's going to be good for the both of them. And she even talks about how it was a good idea, how she's given him chances because everybody deserves a second chance. If nobody ever got multiple opportunities, then we all be worse off for it. Because she talks about how her father used to be an alcoholic, which we know from season 2 of The Walking Dead, and obviously we see where her father went since then, um, minus him dying in real life. Um, but Maggie doesn't regret what she did to Gregory because she gave Gregory multiple opportunities and he squandered every single one of them. So, um, pretty much what happens is this is where they have like another conflict again where Michonne says that they should have somebody that determines who gets these opportunities, and we have to make these communities bigger than the Hilltop, bigger than Alexandria, bigger than our personal beliefs. And then we don't really see anything else that happens from this. But I like this a lot. Um, obviously this is more tension being driven between Rick and Michonne and Daryl and Maggie, and it's like kind of like they have their way they want to do the world to be run, but Rick and Michonne have their vision of what they think the world should be like, and I kind of like watching that. Um, I kind of like watching those confrontations, um, and I think it's really making this show thus far very interesting. But then we have everything else that took place back with the bridge being built. Um, Pretty much we find out that Sadiq and Enid, I forgot her name for a second, the the medical attention, or the medical center at the hospital, and they were treating Cindy. But Sadiq has to be sent home early because apparently there's a virus going around, which was really weird to say that. We didn't really find out anything else about that. So Eden's left doing this by herself, and Eden's still not the best character, but I gotta say, under this new regime of The Walking Dead, she's better. We haven't really seen her that much though. What was really weird though, is I thought was a little bit of a continuity issue, was she was in a wheelchair the last episode. It wasn't this episode, but um, I will say though that the reason I can come up with is because it was 35 days, time skip. I'm guessing she recovered. So, um, Carol is gonna go back to the sanctuary to kind of make sure everything's all right there. Um, and her and Ken Ezekiel reconcile. We get to see Henry again, and I did like the story that Ken Ezekiel was telling Henry when he was talking about the whole purpose of why they were fixing this bridge, and what it means to all the communities. I thought that was a nice story because to Henry it was just fixing a bridge, but obviously Ken Ezekiel was mentioning something bigger than that, and they continued to build. Um, Talking about when Ken Ezekiel proposed to Carol, how Ken Ezekiel believes in how in fairy tales, there's usually a happily ever after, but since this is the real world, well, at least their version of the real world, um, he's gonna enjoy the little moments. And then he also says, well, he kisses her again and says, hopefully this can end up being like a fairy tale, which obviously it kind of will because this isn't real. This is make believe, but we're suspending disbelief. Damn it! And then the next scene that happens is everybody's working on the bridge. Henry is giving everybody water, and they don't have like enough supplies for everybody to have like a lot of water. So want to make sure Justin, who was one of the saviors who had an issue with Dale the last episode, hogs all the water, shoves the kid down, and Henry uses his Kino stick to trip him, and Justin's embarrassed. Dale punches him in the face and tells him to back off. They get into a fight. Just Justin throws dirt in his face and pretty much beats the crap out of Dale um, for a while. I mean, it wasn't really like he beat the crap out of him, but if you were to ask me who won this fight, I would say Justin won because he got a lot of good shots in on Dale, and he had Dale bleeding from the mouth. So Rick comes up and breaks it up, and this leads to a confrontation with Rick, Carol, and Dale, and you know Rick pretty much just wants to get this project done, so he wants Dale to get along with everybody, and pretty much Dale just goes off, says that, um, you know, this isn't how you're not the world's going to be run, um, and he even wonders if him and Rick are on the same side, and Rick's like, "You tell me," and obviously we saw that scene in the trailer. Um, and it's more tension being built between Rick and Dale. And when Dale leaves, Rick even talks about it with Carol, saying that it's been this way since pretty much um, after the war ended, and he doesn't really know how to approach putting this up with Dale. So they're building this up to a future Walking Dead episode, and then um, I did like the scene where Rosita had to work together with the person that like gave her that scar on her face. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, and um, pretty much what happens is they're setting off the um, bomb, well not the bombs, but the explosives, so that way they can lure the walkers away, and they're doing a really good job leading away the hood. But one of the sirens doesn't go off, and but then there's a scene with Rick and Eldon later on, where Eldon tells him what's going on with the Saviors and wants to go look for them, and Rick pretty much says that they're protecting the Saviors and we're not going to give them any guns for obvious reasons. And Eldon even says, "Does this remind you of anybody where you're having us work and also protecting us?" As if Eldon's saying that Rick is starting to act like Negan, which I really liked how they brought that up in the episode. Um, so I really liked how that little plot hole was done. But pretty much what happens is they realize that the herd of walkers starts to come towards the workers, which in that point, um, some of the saviors, Aaron and Daryl, and when they see the walkers come up, um, Daryl uses a stick to kill them, and one of the guys drops a log right onto Aaron's arm, and he gets trapped in there. And Daryl and everybody struggles to get him out. Eventually, they get him out, and Dale is about to get bitten, but then everybody else comes in and makes the save and kills all the walkers with melee weapons and stuff. And eventually, Rick takes out his gun. I think it was a sniper, but I'm not really sure. And there was a rope that was tied to one of the logs, all the logs, and he shoots it, and all the logs roll down and kills all the walkers. And I thought that was a very clever thing for Rick to do, and it was a very well shot scene. I wonder though how many times they had to do this scene to get this right. And sometimes because I like to think about the behind the scenes stuff when it comes to movies and TV shows. When I watch a certain scene happen, I do think, how many times do they have to reshoot this scene or redo this scene to get it right? Maybe this one they wouldn't have had to redo, but you know. Um, so what happens is Dale takes Aaron to the infirmary, well, their version of the infirmary, and Eden says that they have to amputate his arm. And Dale, obviously, Aaron's upset about this because he's about to lose his arm. So Eden does it, and because of the relationship that Eden and Aaron kind of had the last season, you could kind of feel that she really didn't want to do it, but had to do it to save his life. So she does do it, and it was shot really well. And Dale's all pissed off and accuses them, because Justin was supposed to sound the other radio and stuff like that, accuses that Justin did this to kind of sabotage them on purpose. And he gets into a fight with Justin. He beats the crap out of him, and he hits him with like a pot. And Carol pretty much has to stop him from completely beating the crap out of Justin. So what ends up happening is the next scene is Rick and Justin run into each other, and um, Justin mouths off at Rick and tells him um, to um, keep your lapdog at check. And Rick takes offense by this and tells him that when he was a cop, he used to see a lot of people like him when he would arrest him and throw him on the back of his car. And he tells Justin to pack his things and be out of here by the morning. And Justin says, "You don't even have to convince me to stay. I'm already leaving." Um, and then what happens is Rick goes and apologizes to Aaron because he feels like he's somewhat at fault about this because he just wanted to get this project done and really didn't think about anybody else's well-being. Which you could find this kind of relatable to kind of like a boss at work or just anybody in like a given situation where they just want to get projects done and they really don't think about anybody else at play. So I thought that's made Rick very relatable. And then throughout the episode, they had um, explored a little bit about the relationship with Anne and Gabriel, um, who we had seen throughout the episode. Um, they kind of touched on a little bit in the last episode, but in this episode, um, they were sitting like at the table having some sort of meal, and Gabriel had Anne draw a picture of somebody that he had known, which we were going to wonder what the significance behind this was. Um, and Anne was worried about that the community wasn't really going to accept her as well because obviously of everything she did in season 7 and in season 8. But Gabriel mentions that everybody eventually took me in, and it's just going to take people time to accept you. Later on, they're out, and they were teasing that they were going to get together because they make flirty comments with each other, how Rick is very good at putting people in. And Anna even mentions that maybe Rick's not the only one that is good at this. And Gabriel says, "Well, I'm just doing my job." And they hold like um Anne puts her arm over Gabriel. And then the next scene is um Gabriel and Anne out at night, and Anne wants to know who's that person that Gabriel wanted her to draw, and he says it was someone that like he worked with at church that he cared a great deal for, and him and Anne finally pretty much get together, which I really liked. And yeah, I definitely have enjoyed the exploration of Anne's character because really we don't really know anything beyond about her character beyond the scavengers, that whole dumpster group that was in the last episode, well, the last couple of seasons. So I really enjoyed exploring more about her character. And how it ends off with her is she ends up seeing again that helicopter that she had seen um, in season 8. I don't remember what episode it was. I think it was episode 13. It was the episode where she kidnapped Negan and saw this helicopter, so it was that one. And then pretty much the episode ends off with Rick talking to that mystery person, which obviously, like I said, we knew was Negan, and saying that even though we had some bumps in the road today, getting all this stuff, trying to reestablish everybody, everybody eventually came together um, and saw a bigger purpose and wanted to create a new world. And we find out in the episode that he was talking to Negan, which I obviously loved. And Negan was like, "Well, that's a pretty story there, Rick. Um, when do I get to see this world play out?" And Rick says that he's never going to see this world play out. You're going to die in this cell. And Negan says, um, "Then why are you telling me all these stories? Why don't you come and tell me when shit starts to hit the fan?" And Rick wonders if Negan ever gets sick and tired of still thinking that he's in charge. And Negan's like, "Well, aren't you?" Um, and who is he? And he asks who Rick is making this world for. Is he making it for Carl, or is he making it for him when he gets out of here? And Rick tells him not to mention Carl's name again, and that was pretty much the end of that conversation. But I did like this scene because obviously I enjoy Rick and Negan scenes together when they're on screen together, and it definitely sets up something in the future for Negan. Um, and I did like the way that Negan was acting it with throughout this episode. Um, and it definitely shows that even though Rick has won the war and stuff, and he has Negan all locked up, Negan can still just push Rick's buttons. And I really like that a lot. So I really like, and it, I definitely look forward to seeing what's going to come with Negan because we only got like a small taste, um, of Negan since the last season. So I really liked this. Um, and then the episode ends with Justin leaving, and he hears somebody in the woods, or in like the I guess it would be the woods, and he gets ready to kill it, thinking it's probably a walker. But then when um the being comes out, he sees that it's somebody that he knows, or just a person, and says, "Oh, I almost killed you, man," and he kills Justin. But we don't know who this is because we saw it in that person's viewpoint. I did hear the build into this group called the Whisperers, but it feels like it's kind of too early to build to that at the moment. So I don't know if it's somebody like them, but it's really tough to say. It was definitely a good way to end off the episode with a nice little cliffhanger, wondering what's going to happen. So I enjoyed that, and that was pretty much this episode of Walking Dead. And I gotta say, another great episode. I'm also gonna give this one a B plus, just like the last episode. I thought it did a really good job of setting up some nice storylines. I liked the stuff they did with like Aaron getting his arm crushed, and that uh, conversation that Rick and Negan had with each other. The tension that they were slowly building to with Michonne and Maggie. Um, Carol and Ken Ezekiel. I did forget to mention that Carol did say she wanted Sawyer to win, but did not say yes to Ken Ezekiel's proposal. But I like the tension they did with Rick and Dale in this episode, and obviously it had some nice action scenes, and I really enjoyed the episode. I even like finding out more stuff about Earl, and like I said, this show just has a really nice different tone to it too. I even like to when you watch people have a conversation. I can't really explain it, but it feels like in this season so far, when people have a conversation, it means something. Like the words that comes out of their mouth mean something. It's kind of felt like the past few seasons. Sometimes people would have a conversation and it wouldn't mean anything. Um, and I would say this is a must-watch episode. If you miss this episode, you miss a lot. Um, so I really enjoyed this episode. I'm giving it a B plus. But as for what other people thought of this episode, um, the people on IMDb gave it a 7.7 and pretty much praised the episode. There was some hatred towards the episode, but they pretty much overall liked the episode. And the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, it actually got 100%. It got an average rating of 7.53 out of 10. It got 21 reviews, and there was 21 fresh and 0 rotten. A lot of people were asked, why did this one get better reviews than the first one? I think it all depends on how many critics review the episode. I think since this one had 21, the last one had like 26 and had one bad review. But yeah, that's still very good. And you can definitely, I think the show has been saved. For a while, the show was kind of still going. I think mainly because it had a lot of fanfare, but it really wasn't. It was just kind of hated on by a thread. I think the show has some nice potential to be saved. But that's pretty much the last I'm going to talk about this episode at the moment. Thank you guys for watching um, this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people. Actually, no, I don't have to. I can't do that yet. I have to watch Talking Dead. My bad. Jump the gun. All right, so now on to Talking Dead. We had the guest Tom Payne, who plays Jesus, Kaylin Nakan. I don't know if that's how you say her name, but that's how I'm saying it. Who plays Edith, and Deborah Joy Winans. And she was a special guest appearance. People who probably know of her will know her best from her film that made it to TV, Whitney, and the show on right now called um, Greenleaf. So there's that. Um, but this was really more the same from the previous episode. Um, they just kind of broke down the show and just kind of talked about some behind the scenes stuff of it. We got to see behind the scenes of Aaron getting his arm crushed by the log and stuff like that, which was really cool. Um, there was some notable things that were mentioned when Pollyanna McIntosh, I don't know if that's how you say her last name, but she plays Anne. Um, was talking about behind the scenes of what the meeting of her and Gabriel being together was. Um, it was really weird because they called them two outsiders, but that doesn't really make any sense because Gabriel's been in the group since season 5. How can he really be an outsider? So that didn't make any sense at all. So you need to kind of rethink um, doing this shit. But another cool thing they did is they did a little bit of a tribute to Scott Wilson. They didn't do it in the previous episode because that had been taped before they knew Scott Wilson had passed away, and they did like a little tribute to him by showing like pictures, of behind the scenes stuff of him on The Walking Dead. So I thought that was really cool, and I am excited because we'll get to see Scott Wilson probably in his last thing that he did before he passed away, when he went on, because it is confirmed that him that he is going to be on. I think him and um, whoever the person that played Sasha is also going to be on the show. So it will be exciting to see Scott Wilson play Herschel again. I'm very excited about that. But that was really the other main stuff. And obviously, I forgot to mention that it was hosted by um, Chris Hardwick. Forgot to mention that. I'm mentioning it now. So yeah, that was pretty much the review of Talking Dead. It is a nice show to watch. The ratings for this show were a 1.69, which is very surprising. I would think that it would get more ratings, but I think a lot of people probably get sick of this show because it is very formulaic and kind of pointless to watch in a way, but it's a fine watch. It's nothing bad, nothing good, so whatever. And that's pretty much my review of this episode of Walking Dead. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll probably review one more episode before I go to sleep. But please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell so that way every time I upload a video, you guys get the notifications for it. Make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you